What I want to share with you today is something that is really dear to my heart and something I feel many believers struggle with when they're entrepreneurs or when they're leaders who are trying to go beyond the four walls of their church and really learn how to earn while they serve, how they reach more people without compromise. I mean, it's like my tagline says, without compromise. It's something that we wrestle with a lot because as believers, unlike many other people, we at night, we don't measure our success just by the amount of money we make or how many people we impact, but we measure our success by, is this pleasing to God? Is he happy with my service? At the end of the day, are you saying, well done, or are you saying you were a trickster? So I too wrestled with that at one point, and I want to share with you something that guides me. I want to give you about 5 principles that guide me and that keep me moving forward and help me to definitely earn while I serve, or like I like to call it, benefit from my blessing. So if you want to know, I would love for you to take out a piece of paper and a pen. I'm a teacher at heart, and let's get ready to take some notes. So for those of you who are new to me, I want you to know that I try my best to see things through a filter of Scripture and in light of how God will see them. I do ultimately want to please Him with all of my service and everything I do. So I look first to Scripture for the principles on how to do what I do. So for today's little mini lesson, I want to share with you from scriptures in 2 Kings chapter 4 verses 1 through 7. Now I'm not going to read it to you because I only have a short amount of time, but I want to encourage you to go to 2 Kings chapter 4, read the story in verses 1 through 7. And this is the premise of my work when I work with others and teach them how to benefit from their blessing. So I'm going to give you a little background of what's going on. In the story, you'll read that there's a widow woman who, her husband is dead. That's what makes her a widow. And she's going to Elisha, who is the man of God at the time, a prophet in the time. And she comes to him and she says to him, man of God, my husband is now dead. And he was a man of God. And now the creditors are coming to take my sons. And so she explains to him that, I'm in a desperate situation here. And my husband, he worshiped God. What I love about that is principle number 1, is she recognized that serving God is something of significance. And because you serve God, you should have some sort of expectation of protection in serving Him. So I love that about her. But what I also learned from that, the first principle, is that God, not only did she serve God, but He was first. He was foremost. Because when trouble arrived, she went to a man of God, a spiritual leader, and she let him know that, hey, our house position God is first. And so I need your help. So the first thing is make sure that God is head and center of all of your work and all that you do, not just in your spiritual life, but in your entire life. And then when you keep on reading, Elisha looks at her and he's like, well, what do you want me to do? And, she goes on further, and before she could talk, he says, better yet, what do you have in your house? And so she looks at him and she says, your maidservant has nothing but a small jar of oil. And that has meant something to me. It's amazing what she said. And I'll share with you what I got out of that. Then so Elisha says, well, why don't you and your sons go to your neighbors, borrow a few vessels. And, he said, borrow some vessels from your neighbors. And then he says, go everywhere. Get empty vessels and don't get a few. And so they go get them. And he said, when you get through, go in your house, close the door behind you, you and your sons, and I want you to pour that oil into those empty vessels. And so if we keep reading, we see as she and her sons are pouring the oil into the vessels, it seems as if she's getting in a rhythm and she's really enjoying this. And she's like, okay, I got a rhythm going on. And then and he said, pour until the vessels are full. And so she asks, she's excited. And she's like, I need another vessel. And she looks to her son and he says, there are no more. And at that moment, the oil stops. And a lot of times we stop right at verse number 6 where the oil stops. But she didn't. She went to Elisha and she said, I've filled up these jars. What do I do next? And verse number 7, I think, is a point of breakthrough for us as believers, entrepreneurs, and leaders who want to benefit from that which the Lord has given us. He said, go, sell the jars, pay your debt, and live off the rest. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So let me tell you the 5 principles that I learned from this story in 2 Kings chapter 4. And I use that to guide me as I serve and support pastors and Christian leaders, and I want to share that with you. First thing, I talked to you about this already, is God has to be the head of your life. He has to be the head of your ministry, your vision, your business. He has to be front and center. When you do that, you have built-in security. The second thing she did is she knew that although God was her head, she needed some type of leader that was right there that she can go to, that can guide her. I call Elisha similar to her spiritual coach or her mentor. You know, it was someone who shared the same values, who served the same God that she served, by the way, and who understood it and who could guide her and who was wise. So she had a spiritual leader. The third thing is, remember what Elisha asked her. He said, what do you already have? So I was excited about that because she said, so I knew something. By him asking that question, the answer must have lied in the fact that she already had it. He wouldn't have asked her that if it didn't matter. So he knew she already had something. But when she looked at what she had and when she thought about it, she said, I have nothing but a small jar of oil. And I love how she says that, because often we say that. But in my mind, when I read that and when I heard it, I was just like, I have nothing but. And so I want to say to you, you either have nothing or you have but. But there's no way you can have both. But what that showed me about the widow woman, and what that shows me often about us as leaders and entrepreneurs, is that we place little value on that which we have. See, her value of what she had was nothing. But she did have something. So I want to encourage you, step number 3 is to realize that you have something and it is really valuable because God gave it to you. And if God gave it to you, it's not only a gift, it's not only a talent, it's not only a skill, but it's a blessing. And blessings are good and they're always valuable. Okay, and step number 3, thing number 3 I want you to realize is what he told her to do is to go and gather. He told she and her sons to go and gather empty vessels. So number 4 is to go gather empty vessels. That is the key. The key to serving and supporting and benefiting from your blessing and earning while you serve is gathering, not manipulating, not tricking, not being salesy, but gathering, inviting. Doesn't gathering sound fun? It's galvanizing people so you can serve and support them. Go get empty vessels, vessels that have nothing in it, that are lacking what you have. Go gather them. So she went and gathered, and I love what he said about the gathering process. He said, now when you gather these vessels, don't get a few. See, she was only limited by what she was willing to go and get. And we're only limited by what we're willing to go and gather, what we're willing to go and do. And guess what? Going and gathering means going to your neighbor, that means places that are really close to you. These are principles I use, I'm talking about right now. And then going everywhere. It also says go everywhere. So after you've maxed out where you are, then go everywhere and gather. I love that. For the sake of sharing. It really is for the sake of sharing, because what happens is she goes and she closes the door, which I consider that step number 5, silencing the noise, shut down the noise, do away with what everyone else says and thinks and all the clutter that's going on. Silence the noise. Trust the voice of God and that leader that you decided to work with for that specific period of time. Trust that voice. Even if it's just for a season, trust that voice. And so she silenced the noise by closing the door, and she filled the jar. She filled the vessels with the oil that she had. Oh my gosh, I'm getting excited. So when you close the door, when you silence the noise, fill the lives of the hearts of people with that thing that God has blessed you with. Share it with as many people as possible and fill them up to the top. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So when you're looking for that, you're still giving away. Actually, do you understand this feeling is free? This feeling that is given away is really adding tremendous value. It's giving your blessing. It's giving the gift, the thing that God has graced you to do for free, and maxing people out with it at first. But don't stop there, because I'm preaching to the choir here, because as believers, that's what we do. We give. Givers give. We have the heart of Christ dwelling on the inside of us, so by nature we give. But don't stop there. If we look at what happened in verse number 6 and verse number 7, she went back to Elijah because now she's run out. She's filled all the jars. And he said to her, go, sell the jars. OMG. So it's okay for us to sell. It's okay for us to conduct transactions. At this point, you've given so much value. You've shared so much of your blessing. The next step is to exchange the value you've given for value in return. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love that. And so the final step is be responsible with that which you have. Pay your debt and live off the rest. So we don't know how she lived, but I like to just think and kind of, if you would allow my imagination to run free. If she had 9 jars worth of debt, but she accumulated 1,000 jars worth of oil, and she sold it. She paid her debt, and she's living lavish. But if she only had 9 jars worth of debt, and she only accumulated 10 jars, then she's living modest. The choice is yours. And as believers, we have to know that God intends for us to benefit from our blessing. And it is quite simple. It's not easy. It's quite simple. Put Him first in your life. Make sure that you're following a leader who serves the same God as you, who can give you wisdom and guide you along this journey, because you can't do it by yourself. Always place tremendous value on that which God has given you, the gifts and the talents and the skills, because it was valuable to Him. Number 4, remember to go and gather. You can't stay where you are. You can't hide. But in order to benefit from your blessing, you must be willing to gather people who need it. And it's not hunting, it's not shooting, it's not manipulating, but it's just a simple request of gathering, a simple gesture of gathering and collecting people and bringing them together for the sake of serving and supporting them. Number 5, fill the vessels. Fill those vessels with what you have. Be generous and give what you have to others. Share it abundantly. But then, number 6, remember that at the end of the sharing, when they're full to capacity, there must be a place, there must be a point where a transaction will be made. And it's in that transaction that we learn to earn while we save. Earn while we serve. And in earning while we serve, what we get to do is exchange the value that we've given someone else for them to give value back in return. And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So I've really enjoyed working with you, and I enjoy sharing this information with you. Know that you can benefit from your blessing. You can do it. It's possible without being manipulative and without being tricky or salesy. And I want to share this with you as I get ready to close here. Expanding your reach, that's what you're doing when you do that. It's not optional. It's mandatory. When you fail to expand your reach, you are not being modest. When you get one jar instead of 10,000 jars, you're not being modest, but you're being selfish. Because when you fail to expand your reach, you're denying others the opportunity to experience God through you. I want to again thank you for your time. Thank you, Lisa, for this platform. I look forward to serving and supporting many of you along your expansion journey. Until then, be blessed.